What's going on YouTube? It is time for the recap. So last video, looking for that weekly doji, we were looking for a few different confirmations and ended up going through and down. And like we said in the video, we'll do a reassessment along with some targets. So we did some posting today and said, guys, this was from our YouTube video. We wanted to get up to the 1618 or 25K before any drops happened, and luckily we did make it up there. Then we talked a little bit about that futures gap left open a couple days ago, and we needed a gap tap. So of course, in beautiful fashion, she went to 25,000 down to the gap tap. A lot of the times when something leaves a very large gap, especially on the futures, though, it does not fill first tap. So what does that mean? We went long. Alrighty, so we have a huge Fibonacci created at the open and overnight. A little bit of both. We're going to go over the first one at the overnight right here. So we're on the 15-minute chart, and you see this large green Fibonacci high-low. Well, targeting these right here, not one, not two, not three, but four candles on the 15-minute chart right here, okay? These bad boys have no golden pocket tags. What is a golden pocket tag? That means when you draw a Fibonacci from the high to low to any range or candle, the golden pocket is that beautiful center it gives you. We have a startling amount of 15-minute candles in a row that had no GP tag. The algos do not like that. They like to magnet back to clusters like this, okay? A lot of inbounce when we create those candles and stack them next to each other. And now, as you see, where that fib extension goes, we high-low that range, 16234. Holy moly, our final short target, 666, 653.52. So we had a massive over-under, which we covered yesterday on the YouTube, and said, I'd like to see it hold up here. And if we hold above that weekly, we can return up a little bit. And if we go under it, we will reassess. So the reassess was this fib right here created, which was beautiful. And then we had two different things we targeted for the upside. Okay, so first, we were in a gap down. Yesterday's lows is right here on that blue dashed line you see right here. And I put the sentiment over under at 423.60, meaning if we got over that, we were going to come to the gap fill and 2618, best case scenario, back to the doji and other. And best short case scenario, if we failed the 423, we would magnet the 666. So that was our sentiment utilizing the 658 area as an over under, along with this beautiful little daily doji on the daily. So when we hit our big T2 short target out of the gate, we just had a massive drop. We did another beautiful about 3,600 and then only 400 and 400 on the fundeds, a little over 2 grand on the cash. So these two trades that were the best case scenario watches are the ones we took heavily in the morning. Anything under the doji, we shorted down to the 666, and then we called a potential bounce. That is the last area we had marked off for a short, because a 666 extension, and as we just explained earlier, the cluster of 15-minute candles up here are a very strong magnet. So we started looking for that upside, right? So the daily doji and then another cluster of 5 minutes were right here. So on the 5-minute chart, not the 15, you see this gray box. That's 1, 2, 3 candles in a row right here with no GP tags. Same discussion as the 15. If you were to draw a high-low on any one of these, our golden pocket would not be tagged. So we zoned that out and said, well, if it holds that 666 and starts smashing back up, and we called the squeeze right at the 100 EMA today and said that'll go right here to this cluster. And then best case scenario for me was 2618, because that's gap fill. That's what's left. That's meat on the bone, right? And we didn't call long until like way up here on the SPY for the break of the doji and the 100 EMA. So I'm not going to take credit for all those points at that bottom tick, because we were just out of the short watching at that. But we had over 30 points to the long side on the SPY here, and even better on our QQQ call today. We had a much larger long win here because the Q was lagging behind. So we had some really good long setups right here for us. Shrink this down off of a simple algo, right? So algo candle right here, 7 a.m. high low. I pointed to the downside. What do we usually look for? A dip into the 1618 and a return to the 100, right? So perfect textbook play, fib high low, off the algo, ding to the 1618. Back to the GP. So this one was a little bit more fun because SPY was outpacing the QQQ. The divergence runner was SPY, and it was stronger, faster, moving first. So off of support here of the 1618, the Qs didn't quite move to its final long target range, right? before SPY got to its really quickly. So Qs had more room to follow the SPY. So I was in earlier here on the QQQ just riding micros. We had like 5 or 8 micros, made $600 on just the smallest little micro grouping that we needed to run up to the GP. And that was it. We had a huge over under with the weekly fib that we've been following, overlapped exactly with the algo, well, plus minus a little bit here. It's a little ugly right there. Sometimes those move a little bit on you, you know. There we go. So that over under from the 1618 to the 100, we were looking for that channel to break through and continue. Now, so we got most of our long moves and we reassessed that SPY dip buy. What else did we see here from the tap, right? So the gap tap, and let's talk cluster, because I want you guys to keep an eye on these magnets as we come back down potentially for CPI or whatever the catalyst happens to be. When I'm talking clusters, this is what I'm talking about, okay? This is free game right here. This is in the course, why it's important, so on and so forth. Pay attention because these free tidbits are nice because these are paid course stuff right here. So what is this? Right here, the cluster bottom, again, snap to the wrong thing right there. And if we come into this little cluster of candles, okay? You got 1, 2, no GP, 3, 4, 5. So a cluster with 3 in a row, 2 in a row, another 1 in 1. I don't worry about these lowers, but I do worry about this impulse move with 3, and I worry about the top of the cluster, okay? So we have this cluster marked off 589.67 to 587.50, but I would be best case scenario, I would look at the top 3 cluster right here, and that's what I would pay attention to the most, okay? So we are very adamant on gap tap. What does that mean? Well, the futures gap, and I want you guys to remember these right here because that's what the futures gap is, QQQ. Is showing you. And here's that futures gap where we have a giant gray box on the NQ, right? So if you caught the YouTube, I said she was going to come up to 25K. There's our hit after hours, and then she wonked it. And why did it do that? Well, we still had an open gap. So if you look at that futures Monday opening gap, or Sunday rather, 5 p.m. opening gap, and that little cluster of QQQ that pushed her, this is it. So we needed a gap tap. So the gap between obviously the price action here and the price action here from Friday to Sunday is the gap. Now that gap needed a tap, and a lot of the times the first tap doesn't fill, which means the first day of trading. So if this is our first day coming into that gap, a lot of the times it reverses and does not fill a very wide gap like that. Just more often than not, standardized rules, right? So as we came into that gap tap, that's another reason that we were looking for that long reverse all the way back up. Now we have some more long-sided targets that we might see overnight here dealing with lead into CPI, because obviously Powell was speaking, didn't really do much at the, today for that, and we got the big CPI tomorrow. So I think the gap tap here that created a big push can do a little relax, and we will still use the 2618 again. So overnight into CPI, and we don't know how this is going to digest afterward. I'm still going to call long off level here for 2618 first, unless we get absolute domination under the 2618 and get trend, okay? And what does confirmation look like? Obviously, if price actions just chop around a level, you don't utilize any amount of trade from direction of chop. So you're not sitting here going, man, look, it's just a little bit above yesterday's close. I'm going to go all in long because it's guaranteed to come up. No, you look for confirmation, right? Every time. So the oscillation indicators are a big part of our seasoned trade style here. So what we do is we put that 5 minute up, and or 5 or 15, and I like to see the fibs first off the 15, and then I like to see the 5 minute momentum. So what we're going to do first is we're going to delete this so we can have a freshie. We're going to get the 15 minute right here. This is that bottom reversal candle on the open today. All right. And you're going to start to see the overlap. So I'm going to turn this one neon green. There we go. So I want this no tag GP on the 15 minute to produce some kind of support. We have made this candle the fib high low. It has went to the 1618, 2618. Now here's the caveat. It is going from today's trade action to tomorrow. So there's no such thing as first tag metrics anymore because the Fibonacci has existed today, Tuesday, and it will lead into the 5 p.m. Wednesday open, the overnight for the futures, right? So we're not going to look for that guaranteed pull. What I would like to see in best case scenarios here are going to be this 15 to hold. So if we come back up and we end up holding the 2618 and in the green and the purple and the 1618 from the green, we'll make a little channel, right? And what I want to see is all I'm doing is using multiple Fibonacci points to produce myself with zones. And that's what I like to do on trading. And then I'll have the 15 minutes here. I'll drop down to the 5 like we discussed, and I would look for the oscillation. So I have my zone. I said, okay, well, the bottom of that zone is about 24,700. That zone is created between the green 1618, purple 2618, and we are still looking to lead up to the 100. Where's that 100? Oh man, if you lo and behold, if you zoom in there, 25,130 overlaps with the 423.6. Not too shabby. Okay. So we have an opportunity now with algo magnets to stay above 24,700, range back over the 2618 in green, push to the green 3618, right? 25K and beyond. What would be the best case scenario to catch this long? I'll give you the two scenarios to watch for, okay? First scenario is it does hold that opening channel we're talking about right here at 24.7, comes up and makes it to 3618. That's the move, all done. Don't care, pre-CPI, nothing else. Move number two, it loses that 24.7, comes down for a retrace to the 100, holds support at 24.6, 100 points away, because the VIX is crazy, holds support down here, and then does another very large push. The best case scenario is obviously the second metric, would we want to see that dip down into 24.6 area, into those supports, and then it has a rip run right to the 3618 and potentially 423.6 with the 100, because ultimately our 100 fib will be there. So a long sentiment on dips, looking for confirmation to clear this whole move into CPI. And we'll see, because CPI can run us up and sell after CPI if it wants to. So don't make believe this has to go up to the highs or anything like that. CPI could drag us down, or I'm sorry, regular trading can drag us down. CPI could drag us all the way back up here. And then if it wants to hit the resistance points in the purple that are our ending resistance, we can then turn back around and start chasing the gap fill. We've seen crazier things. But for now, I need you guys to stick to the long bias on two dips, channel or the 100 in the green. As we just discussed at 24.6, I want to see those two bang in to support and push back up. So we'll see how that works. If that does not work and it comes all the way down, we're opening way down here near CPI, we just reassess, because obviously you can't predict that a whole day in advance where intraday price action is going to lead to. We can just wake up and play the levels that we have here accordingly when we see them. It's that simple. We don't touch things unless it is trading at our levels. So we'll watch for those two longs off the two cycles, and that'll be that. If you want to hang out in the chat, maybe trade with us live, watch me narrate all this stuff, show you the trades, the ins and outs, all the goods, links in the description. Take care and trade safe.